Good afternoon, everyone. Hope all is well. So, we are going to go live right now with Brian Mahady, who is a property investor, a property coach, mentor, and we're going to be going live and discussing as to why he thinks that. Sorry, Super Shine, but I've got this live with someone right now. So I can't take you on. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be discussing about property investment and why, as to how do property investors go and find the right deals in the market, in the London market, in the UK market. What makes them decide that Super within property will be in touch? Send me a DM, please. Property coach. Brian, you need to accept the request for joining the live. I don't know if you've received the request yet or not. Sorry guys, I don't know what the issue is out here, but we should be live in a moment. You don't see one? Are you using your laptop or your phone? iPad. I don't know whether this works on, let's take this one, cancel. You might need to get on. Here we go. Brian,
Hey, how you doing?
good, and yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm sorry, I'm an old man and this is technology, so.
It's all right. It happens, but we are here now. So thank you so much for taking out your time and coming on here and sharing whatever knowledge you have in the property investment world and how you go about and mentor people in terms of property coaching, what you do. This is what we are here to discuss. And also the fact that how do you go and find your deals in the market. So thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful Thursday morning in London.
Well, it's not so beautiful here. I mean, Yorkshire, it's raining.
It's the same out here. But thank you so much for coming on. So Brian, before we start, if you can introduce yourself as to who you are and what you do, and then we can get the conversation going.
Okay, so obviously my name's Brian. I run a property business called Sampson Harper Group Limited. We've been in property, my business partner and I, for just over 10 years. Started out as complete amateurs. And when I say amateur, I mean, I personally made every mistake you could possibly make.
Of course.
First five houses I brought, I didn't even go and see them. I brought them off the internet.
No way.
Totally. We've had drug dens in our houses. I had a house stolen in the early days
Wow.
where they literally stole the inside of the house, channeled up the
Wow.
walls, took the pipes, took the wires, stole the kitchen.
No
bathroom,
way.
everything. Yeah.
Wow.
I used sourcing agents. I lost 40,000 pounds in some property deals working for a sourcing agent in London. So, you know, one day I went in there and I was buying some properties. I went in 2 days later, the offices were empty. So as far as making mistakes go,
You've done everything.
oh man, I've done it. I've lost tens of thousands of pounds.
Wow.
So
Before we start, Brian, what I wanted to ask you is, did you always think that you're going to be into the property world? Or, you know, when growing up as a kid, as a child, going to school, college, university, did you have any other aspirations that, okay, maybe, you know, you want to become a doctor or a lawyer or a finance guru? You know?
No, not at all. No, I had a reasonably humble upbringing, come from a council house in Bedford, left school at 16, never went to college, never went to university. Had my first job as a YTS. You're probably too young to know what that is, but £25 a week. That was my wage. Yeah. So,
Wow.
Started just working hard, but not smart. So I was working, but going nowhere. And then I had a bit of a light bulb moment and realized this is not the direction I wanted my life to go in. Had a good time, but you know, I wasn't making any money. I wasn't progressing. And then just realized that thankfully I had some good people around me, some mentors, who could direct me and say, look, you know, you've got to stop wasting your life, get yourself an education and whatever it is that you think you want to be, and start heading down a route. And when I say an education, I'm not talking about get yourself a degree in economics.
Yep.
You know, if you want to be a property investor, then do property training. If you want to be a dentist, then train to be a dentist. You know, specific directed training. And then just to fast forward, so a bit of hard work. And now my business partner and I now run 4 companies. We have a business consultancy company, we have a property company, we have mentoring, and we do. My business partner runs a furniture company. You can see links on our Instagram page.
Brian, you mentioned about mentorship, that in your early days you had a mentor, and this is what you're doing right now as well, with other people that come up to you and ask you about property, learning about property, how to go about investing in property, all that kind of stuff. Is it necessary for one to have a mentorship or some sort of a training course when it comes to property?
If you're asking me, I would say 1000% yes.
And why is that?
The reason I made the mistakes is because I thought I knew what I was doing. When I bought those first houses, I had money, but I didn't have time. So I brought through somebody else, and I took their word for what they were telling me. So I didn't do any of the investigation. I didn't do the groundwork. I didn't do the legwork. They said they had a house, I could buy this house, and it would yield X, Y, and Z.
And did you find these houses on Rightmove or Zoopla or things like that? Or
the first ones, when you first start out property, you've got no choice. You've got to start with estate agents and letting agents, and you Rightmove, your Zoopla.
Why didn't you look at auctions for if I can ask?
Well, we haven't actually in the last 10 years dealt with any property from auctions, but then we haven't needed to. So it's not that we're scared to buy from auctions or we don't want to. Property tends to find you once you get to a certain level.
Of course.
So when you're so basically word of mouth. So like we could buy a house
from agents like myself.
From agents like yourself. So yeah. So we'll say to, you know, someone like yourself who deals in property, you know, if you find a property of X, Y, and Z, this is what we're looking for. We want to buy 10 houses in this area in the next year, say. Then we will give you an incentive, you know, say, you know, for every house you give us, here's £1,000. Thank you very much.
Of course.
And then houses tend to come to us. We also have, we do a lot. We used to do very, very much in the early days. We still do some, but it's really important to get out there and talk to people like yourself.
When you say early days, are you talking early days in your business when you started out? I mean, how many years are we going back? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
I would say it's about 5 years. So we did.
Okay.
I did 5 years as an amateur and had all the pain. I then had a fantastic and very crucial conversation about training, and that changed it. So from then I realised, and Matt and I have spent well in excess of £60,000 to £70,000 on training. over the last 5 years and mentoring.
Wow.
That's how. But the reason it's important is
Brian,
because
if you called me up, I would have saved you that 60,000 pounds, man. You know, like
the thing
I
is,
mean,
we have.
for me, advice, it doesn't mean about if someone calls me up and it's just about selling, selling, selling. You know, I mean, even if you see from my Instagram page now, I've changed my model in terms of selling and advice and finding the property, you know, all that kind of stuff, the way I deal with it. So for me, if someone tells me that I had to go to a training course and get all that advice and education as to how to invest my money, I would just tell them, call me up, man. I'll give you that advice for free, because in the end, I know that we may or we may not, our roads may meet somewhere or the other in terms of buying the property, you know.
Yeah.
So like we're here today, and I'm sure I'll be on in your good books for life now.
Yeah.
That when
You're
you
in
want
there
a
now,
property deal.
Well, the reason see that it's one of the reasons my business partner and I set up our own training and mentoring, because you hit something on there. When you don't know what you don't know, how do you know what courses to choose and which way to go? Because you don't know what you don't know.
Of course.
So you end up doing everything. So you do courses in buy-to-lets, multi-lets, HMOs, commercial. You know, you do everything, creative finance. So you do all these courses, and then you realise that, you know, when each course of these are £4,000 or £5,000 each for one course in one area, and then you realise that although all this stuff is amazing, and they really, and I'd advise anyone to do these courses, however, they're so broad and they're so big, and some of the information you might not use for 6 years because you just aren't ready to go from, I'm going to buy my first little buy-to-let house, to I'm going to develop this old hotel into 100 apartments. You don't go from A to B. You start with the buy-to-let. You have to, I mean, there's also another reason why you start at the bottom, because obviously the figures are smaller. You have to build up a reputation, not just with the banks, because the banks aren't just going to lend. I say, hi, I'm Brian, I'm going to build this thing and turn it into flats.
Of course.
I think it's going to be worth $1 million.
I mean, I've spoken to a lot of developers, a lot of investors over the years, and they always say the same thing, that as a first-time buyer, when you go to the bank's like,
oh yeah, they won't touch it. They won't touch it.
We're not, unless you have some sort of a collateral to it, or, you know, you have like a JV partner coming on, all that kind of stuff. That's when you can get into a bank and get that loan and move on. Yeah.
So the banks will look at you as they do any other business. So you have to have a legacy. You have to have something they can look down, a foundation. So they call it kind of the property pyramid. And the property pyramid starts with what some people refer to as the grunters. So the grunters are a number of buy-to-lets. Now, some people will never move above that level. They'll buy 1,000 buy-to-lets, and that's all there is.
Of course.
Then from buy-to-lets, you used to move into something you called multi-lets, but really HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy, it's the same thing, but the small ones. So it used to be the ones that were underneath the HMO certification radar. So
something like a 3-bedroom house and putting multi-occupancy people in there, whereas a HMO would be something like a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-bedroom house that you sort of converted into the HMO standard.
Yeah, so the HMO in the old days used to be over 3 floors, 5 or more occupants, that kind of stuff. So the multi-lets, and this is where people try to jump there too quickly and they don't learn the lessons, and because that's where the money is. So a house that you can rent out for, say, in the Yorkshire, £500 a month, a little 2-bed cottage or a 3-bed terraced house, as soon as you turn it to a multi-let, it makes £1,500 a month.
Yep, totally.
It's the same house. So this is why people get excited, and then of course a HMO becomes £2,500 to £3,000.
£2,500, £3,000 a month.
And then Matt and I have just converted a hotel in Wakefield where we've turned it into apartments, but it is a HMO. But we decided that we want high-end, high-class. We put it into apartments so that when people move in, they don't want to move into this commercial HMO that with 15 people.
There is that stereotypical thinking that, you know, when someone says HMO, they start thinking, oh, council tenants, drug addicts, all that kind of stuff. We're going to be living with them. But actually, the standard of HMO is now totally changed. You have professional people sharing homes and, you know, all that. Of course.
I mean, as I said earlier, I run a consultancy business, so I travel all over the UK, Europe, America, And so I use HMOs because I know what HMO is. I know what they're supposed to look like.
Yep.
It doesn't mean there aren't bad people out there who run some very bad HMOs, and I mean really bad. But that's how we guarantee that we have tenants.
Yeah.
Because anyone that looks at ours, and I think I put some pictures on our Instagram, the last pub we just did, it looks like a hotel. When they move in, they're all the bedrooms are en suite. They're all larger than they need to be. We could have, you know, like anybody else, maybe could have sliced and diced that hotel to get smaller rooms and more people in, but you just end up with trouble. It's better.
But then a lot of times when you're converting these hotels or big buildings or commercial properties, normally you have to get the certification from the council, right? And they want you to design the specific room, or the size of that room should be of certain standard that allows them to possibly house people in there, and it's according to their remit that, you know, this is what the property should be looking like.
Yeah, so when you do a HMO, so one of the things we do and one of the things we teach and train on is you've got to build a power team. Part of that power team is reaching out to the council. We have a phenomenal relationship with our local council. We bring them to the houses. In the early days, we showed them what we were doing, and some of them have some fantastic ideas as well. Not all councils are equal. Some of them are very bad, but we're lucky to have a great council in Wakefield. And we work very closely with them because it's in our interest to do so.
Can I just ask you one question? You mentioned that sometimes the council experiences are very bad. What sort of council experiences are we talking about over here?
Well, there's some councils that don't really care. They don't want to help. They're not interested. Some of them won't even come out and talk to you. They look at you as just another property investor, somebody who's annoying them and interfering in their day. Whereas the ones that genuinely care.
Is that a particular reason there? Because they're getting the same amount of money, the government's paying them. They should be advising the property investors in the same way that other councils do.
Yeah. So if we take Wakefield Council again, this is the area we're working in at the moment. So Wakefield Council, they want to improve the standard of living for everyone.
Of course.
So we work with them. So all the standard of all our HMOs are of a high standard. So our rooms are slightly bigger. If we can make them bigger, we do. And that's because, you know, our guy will come and sit in and he'll say, look, imagine if your daughter was sitting in this room and you made it this small and you didn't have room to even have, you know, a cup of tea on the side, you know, that kind of stuff. Would you want her living like that? And well, hell no, of course not. You know, everyone deserves to have a nice place to live, and that's what we do. So,
and what are your standard sizes of the HMO rooms that you design, you develop?
The council standard size for a double room is 10.5 square meters.
Okay.
But like the ones we just done in the pub, they go as high as 18 square meters.
Wow.
So
you've basically gone and doubled the amount, near enough double the amount of the living space for a person. I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
So it does cost more, and you could argue, well, we could have sliced it down to get more, but it's getting that balance between knowing that we'll have a high standard, it will look great, and people will want to live there, or we can make them small, and then you'll have more empty rooms, you'll have more voids, you'll only attract the wrong kind of person. We want to attract someone who's working, someone wants a nice place to live, who will look after it. Whereas you go to some of the others, and what we do in any area that we move into, the first thing we do is go through the adverts. We'll see rooms to let, and we'll go and have a look at them. And some of them are disgusting. I mean, absolutely disgusting. So we know the area, so we can say, look, if our house was in the next road, and when you walk in, it looks like a hotel, everything's new, brand new carpets, brand new kitchens, bathrooms, everything's decorated. We do little touches like USBs in the sockets and that kind of stuff. Just little things that cost 20 quid.
It's just that convenience, right?
Yeah.
And that is why, for example, location, you know, why does central London sell in such high expensive prices? It's because the location. And now that location is no longer viable because a lot of people tend to move outside London into the greater London part, but then they look at conveniences like these, like the USB sockets. You know, I don't want to buy a charger. I want that socket to be installed to the main so that my phone charges quick. Convenience. And you're supplying that of course.
We're just, the thing is, and I'm not here to judge any other landlord out there, but when you watch the TV, and I was on the Channel 4 Britain's benefit tenants.
Okay.
So in fact, that house that was stolen, they used that house as the pilot to sell it to Channel 4. It was so bad.
Wow.
So I was on that show a couple of times, but
Do you still have a recording of that show?
No. Do you know what? My daughters, who didn't show an interest then, were showing an interest now, and I can't find it. I asked the agent.
It's not even on Channel 4 on demand or something?
No, it's not on Channel 4. It was about 5 years ago.
Oh.
So I can't get hold of it. We were trying, because I wanted to put it on the Instagram to show what people are capable of doing. But the thing is, we had, when we go and look at these houses, sometimes, there's not locks on the doors. There's so much damp in the walls, they're almost a foot thicker because they're just saturated. And people are living in this and they're paying good money. So when they walk into ours, it's a no-brainer. We don't overcharge. We don't say, well, we're going to charge £100 a week more because it's all nice. No, we charge decent, normal, competitive rates, and people choose us.
And Brian, I wanted to ask you this. What sort of, when you build these HMOs and the properties that you do want to rent out as a HMO, what sort of returns do you look at typically?
Okay, so I'm glad you said returns and not yields. So, yields for me are pointless. It's almost like saying it's an average. You can have 10 people in a room and the average age is 30, but not one person in the room is 30 years old. They're almost pointless. Pointless.
Yep.
Return on investment, if we're doing R2R, we don't really tend to look at anything less than 20%. Okay. And the reason I say less than 20%, in most cases, we can have 30 and 40 and 50% returns.
Wow.
In some cases, 100%. And that's because we get what we call the unicorn house. And that's because you can add so much value to a property that you basically get all your money out of it. It's a free house. And we teach people how to buy the house, renovate the house, refinance the house, get all your money out, free house, and do it again. And so sometimes it's 100% return.
And how long does that process normally take from start to finish?
About 6 to 9 months. So, and that's because obviously there's a 6-month rule about refinancing, although there's some you can do less, but on average it's 6 months. So we buy the house, we tend to, in a lot of cases, rip it out completely. So the last couple of houses and the hotel we did, we took it to brick. You could look up to the ceiling. I mean, it was just a shell. And then we completely renovated it. So it takes time. The pub itself, the hotel pub, was about a good 2 years. It was a lot of work and effort went into that one. But the average house, a 3-bed, terraced house, will take about 3-4 months. Then you get it to the point where you can let it out, and then you refinance it 6 to 8 months down. But the reason we have to get those returns is we make our money when we buy the house. Anyone can buy a house.
Of course.
If you had £100,000 in the bank, you can go and buy a house. You could put a deposit down, buy 3 or 4. Anyone can do it.
They say, right, you make the profit the day you buy the house, not
the day you buy the house, not when you sell it. That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
Exactly right.
We've got a question here by someone, and PSG1 has asked that question. But how do you deal with taxes after having a portfolio?
Well, I mean, we do ours through a limited company. So one of the things about taxes is, obviously, the government changed the tax, and you used to get you could take the mortgage as an expense. Unfortunately, you can't do that anymore. So if you are an amateur, and there's a lot of landlords are amateurs, and it's by no fault of their own, they've been left a house in a will, or they decided to buy it as a pension. And those people would have brought it, they would have looked at a yield that said, oh, you're going to get 7-10% return. But they didn't take into account that, you've got monthly operating expenses, you've got agent costs, you've got the mortgage to pay, you've got insurance, etc., etc. And of course, you've got voids. And then there's damage. You could, on a buy-to-let.
But damage can be brought into account with the deposit the tenant pays, right? Yeah.
Depending what it is, but I mean, damage could be, say, storm damage that rips half your roof off, or the boiler packs up. On a buy-to-let, something as simple as a boiler going could wipe out a year and a half,
£2,500, £3,000 just off.
Yeah. Yep. And now you've lost your entire profit for that house for this year and maybe half of next year on one thing going wrong. Now, of course, renovating from day one means everything's brand new. Most things have a guarantee on it. You shouldn't have to worry about any of that for 6 or 7 years. By which time you've made enough money, you're putting money away every month, your monthly operating expenses for such an occasion, so it never hits you. That's part of the training.
Of course.
But of course, then the government took away the tax benefits of saying, well, you can put your mortgage through as one of those expenses. So now people who are making, they might be making 50, 60, £100 a month, really. And when I say that, I mean, you might be charging £500, £600 a month. But when the mortgage has gone out, the agent's gone out, the insurance has gone out, the monthly operating expenses has gone out.
You've got like something like,
points, you made 50 quid.
There you go.
And now you can't claim back the tax because the government's going to tax you on £500, £600. Not only are you not
you're in negative equity, basically.
You're in negative equity. You're now paying 50 quid to have this investment that you brought, and that's not really an investment. And that's why we teach people about having buffers, how to run the numbers, how to make sure from day one that this house works. And if we don't get an exact figure, so we say, let's take a buy-to-let, a leverage buy-to-let. When you take every cost into account, we look at making at least £100 a month. And when we do that, that is
£100 per month per property.
On a buy-to-let, yeah, on a normal buy-to-let. That's all we're looking for. Okay. So a buy-to-let, so you make £500 a month, £100 net profit. That's after the mortgage, after the agent, after the insurance, after the monthly operating expenses, etc., etc. So we have £100 a month. And when we run the figures to get that £100 a month, we don't base it on the interest rate that we're getting today. So let's say I can get a 3% mortgage today or a 4% commercial mortgage. We base it on 6%. We stress test it. So that means we can also accommodate a hike. So we'll make more than £100 a month, but that £100 a month is if the worst happens. The interest rates shoot up 1 or 2%. We're still good. We're still making £100 a month. If if something goes wrong, well, we've been putting our monthly operating cost 10% potentially of the rent every month. So if the boiler goes, we fix it. A window cracks, we fix it. It hasn't cost us anything. So this is all part of the difference between an amateur and a professional. But on the tax thing, basically, I don't think you have much choice other than put it in a limited company.
PSG1 has got this comment, but I think we answered that in this. He said that I'm getting rinsed. I've got 20 properties in Northwest London. My tax bill is silly.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Well, I feel for you, PSG, but if you want any mentorship on how to deal with it, do send a DM to Brian. I'm sure he'll help you out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Brian, we spoke about how you go out and find the right property. What's the right property investment for you? What sort of measures you take in terms of dealing with the expenses of that property. We spoke about how you were an amateur and you went out and made tons of mistakes to get where you are today and understand how to buy that property so that you don't fall under negative equity.
Yeah.
What's in line for yourselves next?
Yeah. Okay. So our goal for the next, it was supposed to be 2020 was supposed to be us. We wanted to double the portfolio. Okay. So we were looking to do some large portfolio buys where we just buy a portfolio of houses. And that could be anything from 5 to 100, whatever's out there. And we'll kind of work with investors to see if we can pick up. The coronavirus has kind of hit that slightly because it's very difficult to get out and about at the moment.
Yep.
But the first part of your question was, how do we choose our house and our area?
Yep.
Okay. So when people say, when's the right time to buy a house? That's a very popular question. So when should I buy?
Now.
And the answer is, okay, don't ask somebody like me. Okay. Don't ask any expert when the right time to buy a house. Don't ask an expert, be an expert. So the first goal is get trained so you know how to do it like a professional. Once you're trained, then you'll know when the right time to buy a house is. And the reason it's different for each person. So we know that there's the circle of, the housing industry. There's a boom, and then the boom is followed by a kind of a slowdown, and the slowdown's followed by a slump, and the slump is followed by a recovery, and then we're back in a boom again. And that might take 10 years to go all the way around. And we keep making the same loop over and over again.
Of course.
Now people say, so at what point should I buy, when it's in the slump, I can get the house cheap, or should I be buying in the boom when lots of money to be made? And it's like, the answer is all of those. You can buy a house in any one of those times, but you have to be the expert. So if I'm not buying houses to sell, there has to be a market to sell. It's as simple as that. So you have to test the water. You can go on Rightmove and you can tick the flag that says how many houses have sold and then take the flag out and see how many houses are left. If there's 100 houses, and when you put how many of them sold and it goes down to 10, that's an area to flip houses.
Of course.
But if you have 100 houses and you tick it in and it goes down to 90, you're not selling houses there.
Yep.
So if there's an area that's still selling, then buy now and sell a house. If it's a buy to let, what's the rental market like? What's the demographic like? What's the population like? What's the need in the area? Talk to people like yourself, experts in houses and sales and letting. This is why this is great, and I'm glad you invited me to do this.
Absolutely.
So talk to people, find out what the areas are, but you are ultimately the one that's going to waste your money, or more importantly, an investor's money. Everything we buy, we use investors' money. We give great returns of anything between 5% and 21. And that's because we've done our homework, we've done our training, we know what we're doing. And so in order to give some, sorry, go on.
Now that you've said this about taking on investors, do you have more capacity to take on more investors this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've always got capacity to take more money.
So guys, whoever's listening, we've got 8 viewers on here. If you're interested in doing a JV with Brian, give him a shout out. Send him a DM. I'm sure he will take you through it. Brian, it's been a really knowledgeable 30 minutes, power 30 minutes of how should someone go out and buy their first property. What strategy should they look at in terms of accelerating in this property market, becoming a mature property investor. Like you mentioned, you have to start as an amateur to become an expert in the industry. And there are people like yourself who go out and give that mentorship.
Get out there.
Absolutely. And if you don't want to spend that money, shout out to me. I'm not taking your market. I'm not taking your market away, but it's there, right? It's free. Before I go, Brian, you know, there are a lot of people. The whole reason for me to do these live shows is to share some positive advice at the end of every live session, where there's a lot of negativity that's going around us right now with lockdown, with COVID, with all the political matters that are around us. You know, people have lost their jobs, businesses have gone bust, landlords are not making money. You know, it might come to a time where properties might be, you know, taken by, repossessed by the banks, all that kind of stuff. What sort of positive advice would you like to share with everyone that's out there today listening to you, and possibly might listen to this live at a later stage, so that they can take that advice on board and move forward in life?
Okay. Two things. First, as far back as you can look on the property market has done one thing consistently, and that is the average house purchase will double in price every 10 years. Now, it doesn't mean exactly every 10 years, but every 10 years. So no matter how bad it seems now, it will double in value in 10, 12 years time, or 8 years time, whatever it is. But on average, 10 years. That's the first thing. So don't panic. Hold in there. That's the first. The second thing, if you want positivity, hang around with positive people. People like yourself, people who are upbeat, who are spreading. You're doing this for nothing, right? You're doing this, you're talking, you're giving advice. This is great. Okay?
Absolutely.
Surround yourself with that. You should have two sets of friends. The first set of friends are the one you go down the pub with, you talk about football, and they'll tell you what's happening on Coronation Street. Not that I watch it. Okay? That's your first. Those are just friends, yeah?
Yeah.
I think if you saw one of my Instagram videos, I said, if you want to be good at golf, go and play Tiger Woods. The hour you have with Tiger Woods will be better than a year with your friends playing golf.
Of course.
Find people who are like-minded, upbeat. You know who they are, because when you talk about, oh, I'm thinking about buying a house, the ones that will spend an hour telling you why you shouldn't do it, why it's instant death, you're going to lose all your money, all those people, that negativity, just drag. They're not trying to be bad or horrible. It's just, for some people, it's a natural stance to take.
Of course.
Find people who are positive, upbeat, encouraging, and you should have that group of friends, because those are the ones that will lift you. Those are the ones that will help you get to where you want to be. Otherwise, you're sitting on the settee and you're watching EastEnders with the wrong people. Make some positive friends. Get out there.
Normally you're watching EastEnders on that sofa, watching it with your family. So are you trying to imply that family gives you the first part of negativity in your life?
No. Maybe a little bit, but no. But do you know what I mean? It's like, it's amazing how many people tell me they haven't got the time to start a business or to buy a property or read a book, but they can tell me everything that happened on TV last night.
Of course. I mean, the thing is that about these live sessions as well, you know, when I first started it, I thought, and I've been on Instagram for like now 3 4 years, and I used to just click on live, say hello to a few friends, and that's it. And then I just got about speaking to one of my colleagues from a development company, and this is how I started the live. So you have time for everything in life, provided you put your heart and mind set to it, you'll
Yeah.
achieve it. You know,
Hard
so
work, and you'll achieve anything you want to achieve. Anything, whatever it is, anything. Doesn't have to be property.
absolutely,
Hard work and
absolutely,
drive. Just don't give up. Don't give up.
absolutely, absolutely. But thank you so much, Brian, for
No
coming
worries.
on
Loved it.
here, sharing the wealth of knowledge that you did and the positive advice. And I wish you all the best. And
Thanks.
I am sure that you will double up in your the property portfolio that you have. And if you are looking for properties anywhere in London, in the UK, do shout me out. I'll be able to help you out. And anyone on here who's looking for properties, do get in touch.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. Absolutely loved
Thank
it.
you so much. Have a
Good
great
luck.
day, Brian.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. So that was Brian Mahady, who is a property investor, professional property investor, mentor, giving property training courses. I'm sure I really enjoyed this live session. I'm sure you did as well. Big shout out to Brian for coming on here and sharing some amazing, amazing pieces of advice on how should one go and buy their first property, what should they look for, how should they make the decision on buying that property. Thank you to all the viewers that tuned in. Today's live sessions are actually all about property, so do tune in at 5, and then at 6:30 we've got a realtor based all the way in New York going to talk about the New York real estate market. So thank you so much to everyone that tuned in. Have a great day, whatever you're doing. Take care. Bye-bye.